grace and peace from the Pennington Grace Church of the Nazarene, 100 Bull Run Road, Pennington, New Jersey, 08534. This is Pastor Will. Welcome to those of you on at GCC and Worship on YouTube. Also, welcome to those that are at welcome2grace.org. We're in the middle of a series on Big C versus Little C. And if you haven't tuned in or haven't seen the other ones, I highly recommend that you go down to the archived area and see them because they're building on each other. But what we're talking about really is God's view of C versus man's view of C. And we divided the C up into church and Christianity. We explored where the differential began, how the differences began. We're now looking at how do we fix it, how do we grow more close to God's view of church and God's view of Christianity. And we're going to start with the book of Romans. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans. It's the sixth book. And we're going to look at chapter 12, near the end of the chapter. And we read these words. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn, live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Now there's a whole lot in that passage. There's a whole lot of God's way of doing business, exemplified through Jesus, but it's the way, if we, the church, worked in God's view, this would become one of our mantras. This would become something that we cling to. Also, if we're individual Christians, as if we live this way, if all the Christians of the United States live this way, there'd be a whole lot less strife and discord across the board, and it would change the face of the community. He starts with, love must be sincere. If you're not sincere, number one, it shows, that's called hypocrisy. But two, it makes everybody who claims the same thing you do suspect. See, you're not just working for yourself. We as Christians don't just live individually. We live as the body of Christ. So every Christian is interconnected. When one Christian does something wrong, it throws a shadow, it throws shade or a shadow on all of us. He says, love must be sincere. It's better that if you're not going to be sincere, don't do it. And then he says, hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Now here's a place where the big C versus the little c mentality can go very crazy and go wild. Because we in our own self, we in our own sanctimonious way, we in our own conceited way, we can decide what's right and what's wrong, even within the spectrum of what God says. We have to remember that God's view is exactly what we have to follow. He says, hate what is evil, cling to what is good. How do you know what's evil and what's good? Listen to God. Work on His plan. Sometimes His plan takes you into places that you don't think are very good. But trust God. And then he goes on, he says, be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Be devoted to each other. In other words, we don't badmouth other Christians. We don't badmouth other Christian groups. Now, I will tell you that there are groups that claim to be Christian that don't act very Christian-like. It's okay to say, wait, that's not proper behavior as a Christian. See, we don't have to let everything run under the bond of love. Love is not license. Love, it says, hate what is evil. If a church group is doing something that is evil, we need to take them to task for it. Now, we do it in a loving way. We do it in a brotherly way. I don't have a brother, but I have two cousins that were 1.5 years apart. They were brothers. And sometimes times got interesting. And sometimes the brothers went behind the garage and settled things, if you know what I'm saying. Those of you who are older, you understand. Those of you who are younger, you may not understand that. But basically, they went behind the house and they had a shouting match that went to a shoving match that went to pushing, a little bit more. But they settled it, and once it was settled, it was done. See, and it says, honor one another above yourself. Funny story, when I was training for ministry, there were about 8 of us that traveled to different churches for classes together. And they were held by masters and doctorate pastors. And we get in the car, and the classes were at 7 o'clock at night. I was leaving work at 3:30, driving an hour just to get into a car to drive 2 more hours just to do 3 hours of class to reverse the order. And most times we didn't eat. Most of us came right from work. So we'd be driving, and we'd be getting close, and we'd have a half hour to spare because we tried to make 45 minutes to spare because of traffic. And when we knew we were close, we'd say, okay, where do you want to eat? Where do you want to eat? And one of the things that we all just kind of fell into the joke of, but it reflects here, is, doesn't matter to me, it's not about me. It's not about me. Well, do you want to eat at Burger King? Or you guys decide, it's not about me. Well, when you have 5 people in a car, they're all saying, it's not about me, you decide. It kind of got funny, and after a while, somebody would step up and say, well, I haven't had such and such in a while. Or I haven't had this in a while. And then we'd say, okay, that's good, But what we, in a funny way, but in an honest way, what we were doing was, we can eat anywhere. We were trying to get the other person ahead of us. Of course, when you all do that, it gets a little tricky. And then, of course, there's always the one guy who says, oh, if all of you are going to say, well, it doesn't matter, then I'll do it my way. But it says that we are supposed to honor one another above ourselves. We're supposed to be the cheerleaders for everybody else in the group. Then he goes in verse 11 and it says, never be lacking in zeal. We don't use that word too much. Lacking in zeal means be enthusiastic. See, how many times do you sit in church and you look around, it looks like a persimmon factory just opened up before the first frost? Well, you can tell that I'm spiritual by the solid look on my face. No, that's not what we're supposed to be. Our zeal, our enthusiasm, our joy in being in the house of God is supposed to be, I've got to tell you, we've been doing a drive-in service because of the COVID-19 virus. And every week, to make sure that they have it tuned to the right radio station, we do it by FM radio. I walk out and I always start this way. Greetings, if you can hear me, toot your horn. It's gotten to the point where their zeal is such, they don't even wait for me to say that. The minute I walk out, the horns start tooting. I don't know if they can hear the radio or not. But what it is they're showing that they're glad to be here. And then it says, don't be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor. Keep your spiritual fervor means don't get complacent in God. Don't think that you've got enough of God. Don't think that you've got all He has for you. Don't think that I'm good. See, we should always be striving to gain the mind of Christ. We should always be striving to gain the mind of God. And what that does is that lets us and shows us God reveals His Christianity and His church for us. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. I want you to look at those because they put them, on this one, serving the Lord. Spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. We need to serve the Lord fervently, with depth, with all that we can do. Why? Because people's eternity is at stake. He then goes on and says, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. If things are going good, it's okay to be joyful. When you see things that aren't right, our first human inclination is to be selfish about it. I want now. It says be patient in affliction. Understand that people are looking at you, and when you look from God's vantage point, and when people look at you and they equate God with you, you don't want to come off as petty or self-seeking or egotistical, because God's not. He says, faithful in prayer. We should pray about everything. Prayer should be your first line of offense, not your plan C. See, prayer is supposed to be what we do. And the prayer is simply talking to God. God, do you have an idea? Which way should this go? I'm open to hearing you. Now, does that mean when you walk into a room at midnight, do you turn the light on or don't turn the light on? No. There's things he lets us do. He let Adam have the mind to name all the animals after God made them. Okay? But it means that we definitely put God, when there's something that bothers us, when there's something we're concerned about, we lay it at the feet of God. And then he says, share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is where a small c and a big C can conflict also. Because a lot of people say, well, I will only share with God's people. No. Think about it for a minute. Every human being on the planet is one of God's people. Now, some are not Christian. They have not accepted Jesus' salvation for sin. But that doesn't mean they weren't made by God. And what it means is be hospitable. Help people when you can. Now, I will tell you that very often when it comes to car problems, I don't help people on the side of the road. I check to make sure they have a cell phone with them because I know nothing about cars. I would just be in the way. But if it's something like an older person with a flat tire, I pull over and done that because I can do that. I can offer them a ride to the gas station. I can't fix their mechanical issues because I don't know any. But it means sometimes it's just being there, recognizing. Somebody said, Pastor, how am I supposed to help every homeless person? You can't. One person cannot help all of them. But you can acknowledge that they exist. Hi, I don't have anything for you, but I'm praying that somebody else does for you today. Or recognizing them as a person, engage in a conversation. They're invisible. In our church, we've had a saying for a couple years now, no invisible people. It just means you say hi. You acknowledge that they're there. Sometimes that's enough of sharing with people in need. And then it says, practice hospitality. If you've got something to give, give. Then he goes on, he said, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. This is one of the largest areas where little c mentality is trumped by large C mentality, and here it is. Our first impulse when somebody does something against us, persecutes us, gives us a hard time, is either to think revenge or isolation. And what he's saying is, bless them, don't curse them. Give them a blessing. Do something nice. Respond in a way different than the world. Rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. It's not proper for you to come up, and if somebody's going through a very hard time, somebody just lost a loved one or their house burned down, don't come up and start cracking jokes. It's not appropriate. It's okay to be with them, and it's okay to say, hey, I'm feeling it. I don't know what to say. And it's okay to not know what to say. At funerals, a lot of times, people will come up and say, I don't know what to say. So you look at them and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it happened. You may or may not understand what they're going through. You probably don't unless you've had the same thing happen. Or you look at them and you just say, I want you to know I'm praying. Sometimes there are no right words. Sometimes it's just the fact that you're there. He says also, rejoice with those who rejoice. It's okay as a Christian to share in the rejoicing of others, even if it's not something that you necessarily would join in. Somebody said to me, this pastor, this place is, in the Nazarene church we don't drink alcohol, but there was a place and they were having a party and they were having plenty out, and they said, Pastor, you went? I said, of course I went. I didn't drink. I didn't do anything that was outside of my conviction, but I wanted them to know that I'm proud of them for what they accomplished. It was a case where a man got a promotion to a high office in his company, and that's how he chose to do it. I can rejoice while you rejoice. And they asked me to say the blessing, and I blessed the food. Okay. And I shared with them, and one person came up to me and they said, you're a minister. We didn't think you'd come to an affair like this. I said, I rejoice with those who rejoice. See, I'm thinking outside myself. One of the things that Jesus did, it said that he hung out with tax collectors, unscrupulous politicians, and prostitutes. He didn't hang out with the spiritual. In fact, if we read just a little bit past here, it says, live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. See, that just says this. As a Christian, if we're doing things God's way, we will hang with the lowest of low to the highest of high. There's nobody that is out of our social structure. How does that work? It means we have to get past ourselves. It means sometimes it's as simple as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the side of the road with a homeless person. Or dinner at a nice place with somebody else. And we don't treat the high up differently than the down low. See, one of the things that small Christians do is they praise the people who are above them and castigate or put down the people that are behind them. That's not how Jesus operated. In fact, Jesus said that those who have been given much, much is required. Verse 17, he goes back and repeats this because it is so important. He starts off with, bless those who persecute, don't curse them. And then he goes on, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. I'll tell you right now, you'll never make that. You can never be right in everybody's eyes. But what you do is you do the best you can and you honor God. Now, Pastor, how does that work for you? Well, sometimes in social events, if I'm called on to pray, I only refer to God because all three major religions accept God. And I say the creator of all. See, my wording isn't isolating people. There's times we have to do that. Well, Pastor, isn't that putting God down? Not at all. What it's doing is it's saying that I recognize that other people don't, and I'm going to try and live peacefully so that you can hear me rather than me screaming my view, even in prayer, and you shutting down. Because it follows with verse 18. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. As far as you can do it. Now, there are times where somebody comes up and there's a problem. And it's okay to walk away from the problem. It's okay to distance yourself from the problem. Because as it depends on me, I'm going to live at peace. Sometimes that means that there's some people that I just don't go near. I just don't deal. Because if I do, it won't be peaceful. And as far as I'm going to be peaceful. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. What he's saying is, you don't have to be the revenge giver. And it's okay to let God do his thing. And it's okay to watch God work. Because God always has wrath. When he pours out his wrath on somebody, it's to draw them back to him. And that's what you want if you're a big C thinker. He goes this way. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. God's job is to take care. And he keeps the tally sheet, and he does it righteously and justly and properly, not us. Yeah, when we're looking for justice because somebody has offended us, and we go out and we hurt somebody else, that just makes two wrongs. That doesn't create justice. And then verse 20 he says, on the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. Both of those things are easy, but very difficult. We don't like to help our enemy. But if we're thinking in a big C mindset, big Christ, big church, we will stand there and we will help them. There's a Christian song that says, nobody knows what you're for, only what you're against when you judge the wounded. What if we put down our signs, crossed over the lines, and loved like Jesus did? See, what he's saying is, what if we gave our enemies blessing? Feed them. Give them water. Don't give them a reason to hate us. Give them a reason to be confused and question us. And it finishes with a very questionable sentence, because it says, in doing this, you will heap burning coals on their head. Now, that's something that was written in a Bible time that doesn't affect us now, but it needs explanation, because as a young man, I thought, yeah, I could burn them bad. That's not what it means. That's not the revenge we're talking about. What it means is, what would happen in biblical day, fires were hard to start. And if your fire burned out, if you let the fire go out, it was a chore and a task to get refired. You couldn't cook, you couldn't clarify water. You had a real survival issue here. So what he was saying is, back in that day, if you ran out of a fire, you would go to your neighbors and say, hi, can I borrow some of your coals? I need to get my fire started. And what they would do is they would have a dish, and they would wear it on their heads. It would have insulation, but it would be warm on the head, and that's what they would carry the fire in, because it got a better breeze. So what you were doing is, you were heaping, you weren't just giving them a couple coals to get started, you were giving them a heaping pile of coal. I got so many, I can take care of you. And that's what it was. It was not just giving them enough to get by, it was giving them a heaping amount so that they could not just survive, but live. And it finishes this way, and this is a way that I would say for all of us Christians in the 21st century, we really need to commit this verse to memory. Do not be overcome by evil. See, the world is getting harder, the world is getting tougher, the end times, I believe, are on their way, and it's easy to think that it's just getting so bad it's intolerable. He says, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we ask that you would allow us to overcome evil, the little C mentality, the little Christian, the little church, the selfish, carnal lifestyle. Would you help us to get past that by recognizing that evil cannot overcome you, and that we can overcome it by you, who is the only true good in our world. We ask this in your holy